The sun is tilted by 6 degrees with respect to the plane of the planets. The reason for the non-zero solar obliquity has been a mystery since it was first discovered by Sir Richard Carrington in the mid-1800s. It turns out that planet 9 can actually tilt the sun.
The fact that the sun is tilted, even if it's only by 6 degrees, the fact that the sun is tilted, the sun is the most massive thing in our solar system by a huge margin, and it's oriented differently than everything else in the solar system. That is an incredibly strange phenomenon for which there really have not been that many explanations even attempted over the last 150 years. It's naturally explained by Planet 9 being exactly where we think Planet 9 is, which it's one of these mysteries that we think is now solved, that's been such a mystery that people haven't even really talked about it very much over the last 150 years because it's just been so difficult to think of why it is.
It has been known since the mid-1800s that the sun is tilted. Over the years, people have put forth various explanations for it. One possibility is that the sun was interacting with the protoplanetary disk via magnetic fields. It's also possible that the disk was just asymmetrical from the beginning. And it's also possible that the sun actually had a stellar companion a long time ago.
It was a moment of inspiration. Not all projects start out this way. Not all results really come. Some of them come, it slowly dawns on you. We were sitting in Constantine's office one afternoon, and we were actually thinking about a different problem entirely, which is how Planet 9 would interact with these very distant objects in the Kuiper belt that made us originally think that Planet 9 was there. And in just a moment, as we're thinking about it, and we're doing this with our hands, trying to think of directions things are going, I think we both realized at about the same time. It's like, oh, it's going to make the sun look tilted too. And it was very clear from the way we did our fingers that it was going to make an effect. What we didn't know until we did the calculations was how much of an effect was it going to have and in what direction was it going to go. But we knew it had to do something.
Planet 9 has been scattered out into the distant solar system. So because it has an orbital period that's so long, it has an enormous amount of angular momentum, right? As much almost as the rest of the solar system combined. So even though as an object it is not as massive as Jupiter, it has a huge lever bar. Okay? And using that lever bar, it can effectively torque the rest of the disk of the solar system by 6 degrees over the age of the sun.
Next, always next on our list is find the planet. We think we have it narrowed down to a pretty small patch in the sky that we have to look at. Small patch in the sky still means we need many, many nights on the telescope. We're pretty convinced that by maybe the end of next winter, we will have been able to cover enough sky that we'll actually be able to find it. When we find it, we both show that this hypothesis has been correct, we learn about it, but we also see how much of the sun, how it should have tilted the sun too, and see if this is the only thing that's been tilting the sun or if other things are around doing it. When we looked at the outer solar system, we realized that while most of the very distant objects, these objects beyond Neptune, beyond Pluto, most of these objects, they all go around the sun and they're all sort of pointing off in all different directions. But the most distant objects all swing out in one direction in a very strange way that shouldn't happen. And we realized that the only way we could get them to all swing in one direction is if there is a massive planet also very distant in the solar system, keeping them in place while they all go around the sun. And we started looking at this and thinking, this must be either a coincidence or it's caused by something else. It can't be caused by a planet because that's crazy. There are no planets out there. I went from trying very hard to be skeptical that what we were talking about was true to suddenly thinking, oh, this actually might even be true.
So the object itself likely is more massive than the Earth, probably a little bit less massive than Neptune. It sits right in between that terrestrial to giant icy planet range. Its orbit unlike the orbits of the known planets, is not nearly circular and planar. Instead, it is exceptionally wide, 20 times bigger than the orbit of Neptune. The orbital period of the Earth is, of course, 1 year. Right? The orbital period of Jupiter, the big player in our solar system, is about 10 years. The orbital period of this putative ninth planet is 20,000 years.
We have nothing like it in the solar system, so it's new for us. It is, however, the most common mass of planets that have been found around all of the other stars. People have always looked at all these other planets in this strange mass range and said, wow, I wonder what these are. I don't know what these are because we don't have anything like it in the solar system. Looks like maybe we do. I'm really hoping that as we announce this, people start a worldwide search to go find this ninth planet.
Again, solar stream is coming from the right. That's where the sun is. All the plasma in the blue is being blown backwards. That's a part of our protective shield here. 2 hours missing, 5:37, exactly the same time. Everything goes haywire. Come up to that point again. Everything's coming from the right. Bam. Now the black lines are our field lines. That's our magnetic field lines. Very important. They have now bent backwards at this point. People have talked about Planet X, Nibiru, Planet 7. If there's an object coming in, would it have orbiting planets? Would it have debris with it?
So this is some stuff that piqued my curiosity that I'm sharing with you here. All of this stuff will be linked. I suggest you go to the Caltech thing and watch the whole video. But anyways, I'm going to try and get through this quickly for you. Planet X to really cause mass extinction this month. This is April 9th, 2016. We're going to come down here. Thanks to science, we know that the larger the celestial body, the bigger its gravity, and consequently its ability to affect other, smaller bodies around it. We've known of Jupiter's crucial role in protecting us from asteroids for quite some time now, but the mysterious Nibiru could very well do the opposite, and some say there's good reason to believe it. We're going to come down here. A retired astrophysics professor from the University of Louisiana, Daniel Whitmire, is saying Nibiru has all but arrived to our neck of the woods, and that the destruction brought about by its gravitational trickery will take place this very April, as it's done numerous times before. Then we're going to come down here. Earlier this year, we started seeing space anomalies manifesting in a small group of objects, which have been taking on a peculiar orbit. Only something 10 times the size of the Earth, as theorized with Nibiru, could influence celestial objects in such a way, according to a study from Caltech. The anomaly was picked up on in the Kuiper Belt, which stretches all the way past Neptune, and it resurrected a 100-year debate. And then we're going to come over here, because again, this stuff just piqued my curiosity, and I wanted to share it with you. This is fire officials' reclaim report of possible meteor strike in Bowie. This is Bowie, Maryland. This was on April 25th, 2016. And we're going to come down here where this was put out by the Bowie Volunteer Fire Department. Possible meteorite strike behind Scarlet Oak Terrace causing a massive brush fire. And then we're going to come up here and see that when firefighters made it to the site, there was a large pit, which was 12 to 15 feet wide by 5 to 6 feet deep. And the fire spread to adjacent trees and brush and took approximately 15 firefighters 4 hours to extinguish. But again, they came out and said, nope, that should have never been put out. The post should have never listed a meteorite as the cause. Okay. Okay, so now we're coming over here. Was it a meteor? Solving the mystery of New Jersey's tsunami buoy. April 25th, 2016. A tsunami warning device about 200 miles off the coast of New Jersey went into event mode over the weekend, but there were no giant waves threatening the shore. There was speculation that the drop could have been triggered by a meteor because the Lyrid meteor showers were active during the weekend. There also was speculation a submarine could have struck the buoy. So again, this stuff just piqued my curiosity, want to share. We're going to move here. Okay, so now here we are, coast to coast. This was from March 30th, 2016. In the first half of the show, retired investigative researcher Bob Fletcher talked about his contention that a rogue Planet X or Nibiru is coming our way and the disastrous effects it could have for Earth. He first became suspicious that something was afoot when he discovered that massive amounts of money were being funneled out of the government and the Federal Reserve. He concluded that these funds were surreptitiously used for the construction and stocking of underground facilities that will house the elite and members of the New World Order, while the arrival of Planet X wreaks cataclysms upon the planet's surface. According to his sources, the knowledge of Planet X dates as far back as 1983. So again, I was just like, well, that's interesting. And so we're coming over here because I remembered hearing about Rumsfeld talking about the missing $2.3 trillion that they couldn't track on September 10th. And we all know what happened on September 11th, 2001. Nobody was talking about the missing money. So I Googled just to see, and there was this one, which brought me over here. So here we are, debunked. Rumsfeld says 2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon. In 2001, Donald Rumsfeld said, according to some estimates, we cannot track 2.3 trillion in transactions. This has been misinterpreted by many people as 2.3 trillion actually going missing. However, it's really just about the way the money was accounted for. So here's the original source. Go look at it for yourself, right? Okay. Oh, well, golly gee. Page not found. Okay, well, there was another link, right? Here, we can also see this. Huh. No input file specified, but yes, there was. So again, this was something, this has gone long, but it really, really piqued my curiosity. And I wanted to share it because, again, trying to put the pieces together. Here we are. He first became suspicious that something was afoot when he discovered that massive amounts of money were being funneled out of the government. And then, I don't know. This just made me go, that's interesting.
What we have discovered is that numerous features of the Kuiper Belt, a field of icy debris beyond the orbit of Neptune, can be understood if the solar system possesses an additional ninth planet that resides well beyond the orbits of the known planets.
When we looked at the outer solar system, we realized that while most of the very distant objects, these objects beyond Neptune, beyond Pluto, most of these objects, they all go around the sun and they're all sort of pointing off in all different directions. But the most distant objects all swing out in one direction in a very strange way that shouldn't happen. And we realized that the only way we could get them to all swing in one direction is if there is a massive planet also very distant in the solar system, keeping them in place while they all go around the sun. And we started looking at this and thinking, this must be either a coincidence or it's caused by something else. It can't be caused by a planet because that's crazy. There are no planets out there. I went from trying very hard to be skeptical that what we were talking about was true to suddenly thinking, oh, this actually might even be true.
So the object itself likely is more massive than the Earth, probably a little bit less massive than Neptune. It sits right in between that terrestrial to giant icy planet range. Its orbit, unlike the orbits of the known planets, is not nearly circular and planar. Instead, it is exceptionally wide, 20 times bigger than the orbit of Neptune. The orbital period of the Earth is, of course, 1 year. Right? The orbital period of Jupiter, the big player in our solar system, is about 10 years. The orbital period of this putative ninth planet is 20,000 years.
We have nothing like it in the solar system, so it's new for us. It is, however, the most common mass of planets that have been found around all of the other stars. People have always looked at all these other planets in this strange mass range and said, wow, I wonder what these are. I don't know what these are because we don't have anything like it in the solar system. Looks like maybe we do. There are many telescopes on the Earth that actually have a chance of being able to find it. And I think that many people will be inspired to use their telescopes. I'm really hoping that as we announce this, people start a worldwide search to go find this ninth planet.
History shows us that it's a bad idea to consistently say we have now reached the end of the solar system and there's nothing beyond what we already know.
And all those people who are mad that Pluto is no longer a planet can be thrilled to know that there's a real planet out there still to be found.
NASA has recently confirmed by its neowise project tracking near-Earth objects that a brown dwarf star is, quote, relatively close to Earth. And of course, in this comparison image, you can see how big the brown dwarf star is compared to Earth. It's bigger than Jupiter. And of course, it's heading inbound towards us, towards our planet. But it's not only NASA of the United States or European Space Agency or the space agencies of other countries that are interested in this planet. It's also the Vatican. In a recent article, Planet X and the Jesuit footage classified Secret Omega, it's the Catholic Church that has its Servizio Informazione del Vaticano. That's the Secret Omega. An Italian investigative journalist claims that he recently had a meeting with a top Vatican official belonging to this Secretum Omega, and they are in charge of extraterrestrial affairs and the return of Planet X. So Secret Omega, governs access to all this information. And this explains why former Vatican insiders, such as Monsignor Corrado Balducci, appear to be out of the loop, and they give this information. The release of the controversial MJ12 files and of the Guardian files by anonymous individuals for the first time in history, one member of the ufological community, an Italian freelance writer and investigative journalist, was able to check the credentials of this anonymous Secret Omega insider. And this man was responsible for the release of classified material having to do with the return of Planet X and extraterrestrials, aliens, and the extraterrestrial affairs. So he was an insider of the presumed Vatican intelligence structure, Secret Omega, and his actions were supported by his colleagues. Now, the freelancer Cristoforo Barbato, talking about Secretum Omega, is an Italian independent UFO researcher, and for the last 7 years worked on writing concerning several UFO magazines in Italy. He's also collaborated to the realization of 2 Italian encyclopedias on UFOs, and interesting enough, he also has had many contacts concerning Stargate Extraterrestrial and Stargate Magazine, where he wrote concerning the Fatima apparitions and the famous third secret of Fatima that supposedly has not yet been disclosed by the Vatican, even though they were supposed to do that in the 1960s. So as Barbato was writing his various articles concerning the Fatima apparitions and the famous undisclosed third secret, in the year 2000 he received emails from an anonymous person claiming that he was a Vatican insider belonging to the Omega Secret Service, having to do with the extraterrestrial and Planet X files. He asked to meet him, and he did so in Rome in 2001. And Barbato was sure that this man was legitimate. This man was a Jesuit working at the Holy See, and he provided videos and images having to do with Planet X at the edges of our solar system. So in 2001, the Vatican insider sent Cristoforo Barbato by post a videotape. And in this videotape, for the first time, it contained a footage of 2 minutes regarding observations of a planetoid in deep space, what we call Planet X, or the 10th planet, as referred to by Zecharia Sitchin, and it was approaching our solar system. The video showed an introduction of writings of classification on it and had been carried out by a secret space probe named Silo. He went on to explain that the Silo space probe according to Barbato's contact, sent the images of the planetoid Planet X in October of 1995, after it came back from the border of the solar system to have more power for the signal, to a secret radio telescope hidden at an unused oil refining plant in Alaska managed by Jesuits belonging to Secret Omega. He also added that this radio telescope was built in 1990 to observe anomalous celestial bodies on approaching the solar system. Well, we also know that the Vatican has an Arizona telescope watching the skies as well. So the passage from Barbato's press release says, quote, "The meeting with an alien delegation at Maroc Airfield Base in February 1954 in the presence of President Dwight Eisenhower and James Francis McIntyre, Bishop of Los Angeles. After that incredible event, McIntyre flew to Rome to refer everybody to Pope Pius the 12th, who decided to found the SIV, the Secret Omega, with the aim to gather every possible bit of information about aliens and how they interacted with the American government. From then, Bishop McIntyre of the U.S. of Los Angeles and Detroit Archbishop Edward Mooney became the main information co-coordinators between the U.S. and the Vatican State. This secret Omega insider of the Vatican also informed Barbato, the Italian investigative journalist, that the United States had a phantom spaceship called Aurora, which was capable of reaching Mach 6 speeds. And of course, the U.S. officials are denying that. The insider alleged that it was an American secret hypersonic aircraft capable of reaching the Mach 6 performance. Now, the Italian investigative journalist Barbato remarks are confirmed in Dr. Stephen Greer, his book recently titled Hidden Truth, Forbidden Knowledge. Revealed in the chapter number 16, passages of it have been published in Nexus News Times magazine on the survey Twilight Zone, number 64, October-November 2006, that during a meeting with some rebel insiders taking place in December 1944 in Phoenix by Wrigley Manson, one of them confessed to him that Indeterminate Jesuits control technology on UFOs, information, and contact with aliens. This article also goes on to state that there should have been some direct personal meetings between Secret Omega members and the Nordic-looking races of aliens coming from the Pleiades, and that these aliens presumably warned humans against another alien race met by the Americans in the California desert. That these meetings between Secret Omega and aliens took place mainly in the U.S. territory, but also twice in Rome at the Vatican. Precisely in the Vatican Gardens at the Papal Academy of Sciences, in the presence of Pope Pius the 12th. The Jesuit contact also confirmed to the Italian journalist the reality of the George Adamski John the 23rd meeting, where they spoke about some very interesting details concerning the aliens and Planet X, and also called Secret Omega the highest security level, equivalent to the NATO Cosmic Top Secret. I'll leave a link below for you for this article. One of my previous videos was on Planet X, and that NASA had detailed the fact that we had a brown dwarf star relatively close to Earth. Relatively close to Earth without saying how close it was, but it was a discussion concerning near-Earth hazardous objects which could possibly impact Earth or fly so close to Earth that the impact would be felt on Earth. And also Father Malachi Martin, who is close to one of the former popes, who passed away in 1999, and many people believe that his death was not by accident, because he had revealed the fact that Planet X, or some kind of a planetary body, was inbound towards Earth, and that third secret of Fatima would in fact be a celestial body coming so close to Earth, or impacting Earth with a devastation, a chaos that would be utterly inconceivable. He said that it would not be a few million casualties, victims, it would be an unimaginable disaster. For quite some time now, the Vatican has had its infrared telescope in Arizona examining the skies for what could be incoming. Also, we had a previous video concerning the fact that the planets in our solar system are heating up, they're lighting up, and the scientists have no explanation as to what is causing this. Of course, there is something causing it, something causing friction, something causing energy, and they have no idea where it's coming from. We also have over 100 underground bunkers in the United States. People who are affluent, the elite, the rich people, the people that can afford the underground bunkers, are trying to set them up for something that they believe is incoming, some kind of a devastation. We also see that the Federal Bank of New York has moved from New York to Chicago because they fear of something that may take place concerning the East Coast, some kind of a natural catastrophe. And it's not just in the caliber of Hurricane Sandy, something much more. Pope John Paul II in Fulda, Germany, 1980. October 1981, issue of the German magazine Stimme des Glaubens reported on a discussion that Pope John Paul II had with a select group of German Catholics in November of 1980 the following verbatim report. Discussion. Text of the public report says, the Holy Father was asked, what about the third secret of Fatima? Should it not have already been published by 1960? Pope John Paul II replied, given the seriousness of the contents, my predecessors in the Petrine office diplomatically preferred to postpone publication so as not to encourage the world power of communism to make certain moves. On the other hand, it should be sufficient for all Christians to know this. If there is a message in which it is written that the oceans will flood whole areas of the earth, that's of course tsunamis, the whole areas of the earth worldwide, going back to what Pope John Paul was saying, and that from one moment to the next, millions of people will perish. Truly, the publication of such a message is no longer something to be so much desired. The Pope continued, many wish to know simply from curiosity and a taste for the sensational, but they forget that knowledge also implies responsibility. They only seek the satisfaction of their curiosity, and that is dangerous if at the same time they are not disposed to do something, and if they are convinced that it is impossible to do anything against evil. At this point, the Pope grasped a rosary and said, here is the remedy against this evil. Pray, pray, and ask for nothing more. Leave everything else to the Mother of God. The Holy Father was then asked, what is going to happen to the Church? He answered, we must prepare ourselves to suffer great trials before long, such as will demand of us a disposition to give up even life, and a total dedication to Christ and for Christ. With your and my prayer, it is possible to mitigate this tribulation, but it's no longer possible to avert it, because only thus can the Church be effectively renewed. How many times has the renewal of the Church sprung from blood? This time too it will not be otherwise. We must be strong and prepared and trust in Christ and his mother, and be very, very assiduous in praying the rosary. The prayer of the rosary is either to Jesus Christ and to the Mother of God, the Virgin Mary. What it means, when Pope John Paul II spoke at Fulda, he had not yet been the victim of the 1981 assassination attempt. Speaking of the third secret of Fatima, he did not allude to anything resembling a future assassination attempt, which in 2000 the Vatican announced to be the subject of the final part of the secret that Our Lady revealed in Fatima in 1917, but rather to imminent chastisement and worldwide tribulation. The Holy Father implied that evil is the force behind the elements contained in the third secret. The themes alluded to here by the Holy Father are consistent with these considered by leading Fatima experts to be the substance of the real third secret of Fatima, and are discussed in detail in the article The Third Secret. And I'll leave a link below for you for anyone who wants to read on that. It's concerning what the Mother of God, the Virgin Mary, told to Sister Lucia, who is in the middle of this photograph. Links below.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here, aka David Field from About Laughing Gas. It's 5th of June 2016 today, and I want to give you my most up-to-date timeline of Nibiru, because there's a lot of stuff coming out. There's something coming out on TV on the 7th of June, Tuesday the 7th of June, which is a Channel 4 thing, which is a look at my brother and myself's kind of our lifestyle, and in it I talk a lot about Nibiru, and so I think a lot of people are going to be curious about where I stand on the subject of Nibiru since making that film, because another sighting has come into place. And so it's really been quite an exciting discovery of seeing how this thing unfolds and what this thing is doing and all its movements. And I haven't got it right. I'm not correct in this estimate. It's what I understand so far, and that's all I've ever been given or giving in the information, is what I'm guessing up to a certain point. And I've just been able to isolate up until now. I've only been able to isolate a 200-day cycle in Nibiru, going around whatever this second thing is. So let me show you the cycle and take you around so you're completely up to date. Okay, so let's just run the whole loop from 2010 right up to 2016, where I'm assuming this kind of exits the central hub of our solar system. So we're just looking at the general movement of Nemesis coming over the top of the sun, with this thing circling around it, coming rapidly up to 2016 now. And we're going to go again and explore this a little bit more deeply to understand this date and this point right here, why we arrive at this point, all these different sightings that we've seen along the way to arrive at this point. Okay, so let's run 2010 through and pause it right there. And so what you're actually seeing there is Nemesis coming up behind the sun. We're basically at the end of 2010, coming into 2011. Nemesis coming up behind the sun. Okay then, so we go into 2011, and March 2011. Now I don't know if the angle of this is exactly like this. It could easily be like this, which means in March 2011, whatever that big thing is, our second sun would be very close to Earth at that stage. Might possibly explain Fukushima. Okay, so let's continue round in 2011 to 5th of August. And we see this sighting here. Okay, so seeming as this was the first real sighting that I've had of what I think is Nibiru circling around Nemesis, and we only see it in the highest point. So if we take the 5th of August 2011, if we take that as the first sighting, and I've worked out this 200-day cycle, so just see if this cycle works. Take 5th of August 2011, add 200 days and times it by 10. Okay, so let's keep going to the next sighting, which is on the 2nd of February 2012. Now, it's very worth noting here, because both these sightings, the first one on the 5th of August and this second one on the 2nd of February 2012, the following year, were both listed as possible sightings of comet Ellen. So we were expecting that to fly by. We were told that's going to be a big thing in our sky, and this shows up. If it's on the 200-day cycle, we'd be expecting it on Tuesday the 21st of February 2012, which means on a 200-day cycle we'd be 19 days out. So let's keep going to the next point on our timeline, which is the 8th of September 2012. So it's worth noting there we have no witness flyby whatsoever on that date. So we're missing one at that point. So let's keep going to the 14th February 2013 and take a look at this piece of footage, which is also very interesting.
So weird, man. It's a flock of birds. That make it cool. See, they look like they're moving now, but it's taken them so long to go that far. They should have been out of our frame of reference like minutes ago, like 20 minutes ago or something.
No,
I mean, they're moving so freaking slow. It's so weird, man. Did you take that picture?
Love the birds.
Look at the birds. Ooh, get it with the birds.
And this comes at a very interesting time.
As a reference.
So, on our 200-day prediction cycle, we'd be expecting the 27th of March 2013, but it came on 14th February 2013. And that means basically it's 42 days out. So it arrived 42 days earlier than the scheduled 200-day time. Now that could have happened for multiple reasons, but we were all expecting Comet Ison at that stage. It actually turned up on Valentine's Day, 14th of February, and you know what came before the day before that? The big Russian meteorite. I think it was on the 13th of February 2013. Okay, so let's keep going around, and we come to the next sighting, which is on the 14th of October 2000.
Okay, here it is again. I'm using night mode now, and it's just moving very slowly towards the eastern sky with a mist around it the whole time. A mist that is circling. The mist is like, hard to describe, elliptical around it. Heading into the east now. The mist follows it the whole way. It's silent. Fairly bright. At first I thought it was the moon. Size-wise, maybe the size of maybe quarter moon. The amazing thing is the mist is just moves with it the whole way. The ocean below. Still moving. Constant speed. It's disappeared now.
Okay, so on a 200-day cycle that we've been looking at, that would have been due on the 13th of October 2013. It came 14th of October 2013. So we were a day out. But what was interesting is the perspective. Let me just give you a fast forward of it here. What's interesting is this sense of something coming towards us with the tail behind it, and we're getting this amazing view. And for this reason, I've got a funny feeling that our cycle of Nemesis going over the top and coming around the sun is a little bit more like this. Okay, so let's keep going around now to 1st of May 2014. And we'll just make a note at that point to say that there was no witness sighting that I could find on that day in our 200-day cycle. So let's keep going. Which means we come to the 23rd of November 2014, to this sighting over Canada. It's an incredible sighting. We would have actually been expecting in our 200-day cycle for it to be on Monday the 17th of November 2014, which means basically we were 6 days out, which is a distinct pattern that's starting to show here. So let's keep going now to the next sighting, which was on 8th of June 2015. So this was seen by Vicky Acklin on the 8th of June 2015, just after sunset, literally following the sun down. We would have been expecting the 5th of June 2015. So that's 3 days out. So we're really starting to see this pattern now. Okay, so let's keep going now to the next sighting, which was my own sighting on the 28th of August 2015, where I was with my girlfriend at the time, Dana Day, and she pointed up. We were up in the Pyrenees, and she pointed up to me and said, "Dave, what's that?" And I turned around and I looked and I was just like, "What is that?" You know, and up to that point, I'd only ever seen this whole. I'd seen Nibiru in a crazy dream that told me this was what the fuss was all about, and then to go up to the Pyrenees and suddenly see this sighting, and begin the calculations of actually trying to find, realizing that there really was something up there, and starting to assemble this whole timeline, which I'm giving to you now. And of course, this posting, which came out on Last Messages a month later, which was very similar to what we saw, is just a lot bigger. And of course, that led up to the big sighting on the 22nd of December 2015 that I'd made a prediction in the previous video, where my truck had burst into flames 3 hours after I posted the video. And so you can imagine that was pretty mad, because I'd gone up to the mountains and discovered this Nibiru Nemesis, made this crazy video, and then the truck had literally caught fire directly after, and it was because of the truck catching fire that caused a lot of attention. That really put me on the radar a lot more. I thought it was really losing everything, but actually put me on the radar a lot more in my whole story, made my story a lot more public. And then the video went on to get nearly 100,000 hits, which was when Channel 4 or Love Productions got in contact with me soon after that, and it all started getting quite curious, and I was seen as really quite a madman, until of course we come round in the cycle to the next point, which is the 22nd of December, and we have these two sightings. So this is an amazing shot. It was either on the 19th or the 20th of December 2015, 2 days before our 200-day window. And you know, I wondered what the tail was made of, and you know what I'm thinking now is, because the way it orbits around this thing but gets very close to the sun each time it does a cycle, I'm of a mind that the surface is actually getting vaporized by the heat of our sun as it's flying on through. I don't think this is ice, I don't think this is a comet, I think this is a planet, and the surface is literally leaving a trail of everything that's coming from this. That is the vapor trail, and then this 4 days later.
Holy moly, that's no freaking airplane. December 24th, 2015. Central Indiana, this is Becky Lewis. Oh my freaking God. Are you kidding me? Let me tell you, that is no freaking airplane. That's in the southeast, where I always get the red glow. Holy God. Shit, I can't even hold it still. Please, excuse my language. Oh my gosh. I am just tripping out. What the frick? Oh my freaking gosh. Friends, it is going to go behind that stuff and I won't be able to see it anymore. Oh my gosh.
And of course, here's where we've had the big sighting that's changed everything. This is on the 28th of March 2016. Now, this was a day before I made my, or a day after I made my last video saying that we were coming to the 100-day point in the 200-day cycle. So we were basically 100 days. We were right in between the 22nd of December 2015 and the 11th of July 2016. So Becky Lewis filmed this on that day, and this is filmed at sunset, so it looks like it's heading in the same direction, except that note that she's filming this at sunset, not sunrise. So you've got a picture that she's looking out at the same kind of thing, but she's upside down from where she was at sunrise when she first filmed it on the 24th of December 2015, 100 days before. So you're getting the reverse thing. So what this actually means is we're seeing Nibiru and another planet that's obviously orbiting Nemesis. We're seeing these planets for the first time on the far side of their cycle, which means it's passed clean through the ecliptic, because we haven't been able to see these because they've been too close to the sun, and suddenly on this side they're not close to the sun anymore. So it means it's dropped through the southern hemisphere of our solar system and is heading out from whence it came. It's absolutely clear evidence. We've been waiting for that 100-day appearance at some point throughout this cycle. We know unless it's just going to continue to orbit our sun, but if it begins an exit out, then we understand that it's finally come through to the southern hemisphere of our solar system. Note that there's two things that are two comets, asteroids, whatever you want to call them. To me, they're just two planets orbiting Nemesis, Nibiru and something else, and we saw it in February 2012, and we're seeing it again here in 2016. So I'm just assuming that we're getting to learn about another orbit around Nemesis that only shows itself periodically. We've definitely got the 200-day orbit of whatever that is, but we're getting something else there as well that's also coming up every occasionally. But it's very clear, they're both obviously clearly orbiting the same thing, and they're both coming to view only rarely, but Nibiru has a distinct 200-day orbit, whatever that is Nibiru. Okay, and pretty much hereafter, we're in prediction now, aren't we? We come to July the 11th, which is the next highest point in the cycle that we've understood it, but we're starting to see a big change because of our previous sighting where we've seen Nibiru plunge through the southern aspect of our solar system. We've learnt so much more about its position in that moment that, everything I did with Channel 4, we hadn't had that sighting yet, so it was still unclear. Had we missed it, or had it happened? It's happened, it's come through. So now we can only predict that this is the final big passing point. I mean, I don't truly know the angle, the trajectory. It could be that it's more like this, and which could potentially give it a later time. You know, we're talking days and weeks, more than months here, a difference. But at this point, we've got a juncture around about December, January. It could be earlier. You know, I truly do not know its position. I'm desperately trying to calculate it on a very limited amount of sightings and information. I built this whole flash player. You know, what to do with the information that I've had. No one's really been able to understand me. I'm just completely doing this on my own. I live in a truck. I'm trying to put this information together. I've just lost everything in a fire. I'm trying to make enough money just to sort of like get all this stuff. So I'm building a house while I'm doing this. I'm trying to work out how best to do this. So I'm thinking, you know, because I've had to try and find some work to make some money and everything else like that. So to try and put all this information together, I thought how best to do it. And I thought best to learn how to use Flash and to try and compress all this information into some functional pathway that everyone can understand. And this is the best I can do. And you know, the crazy thing is that all this information has come in whilst I'm giving this crazy message about, which is the reason I wrote my book Laughing Gas, which was that Britain would face a choice of whether we choose to stay in Europe or cut our anchors at this time. And, you know, you might think that David Cameron is pro-Europe, but I don't believe that's the case. I believe he's orchestrated this. He was the one who set up, who brought about the European referendum in the first place. And then you've got Tony Blair, you know, representing sort of like Europe at the moment while the Chilcot case is going on, which is disputing whether the Iraq war was legitimate. Not that Tony Blair can be prosecuted in this because he's got immunity from this from the very start. So you've got this person that's representing Europe that we all absolutely loathe. We've got all these characters representing Europe at the moment. You know, Tony Blair was going to be the president of Europe, but was he? You know, in Europe it was an absolute joke. But Rupert Murdoch and all the tabloid papers are making us feel as if we absolutely loathe Europe at the moment, as if we want out. And this is a big part of the whole political play that's happening as a result of what's coming in here. This is much bigger than you're realising. There's a lot of people truly understand that this thing's coming in and are gearing up for it, and breaking us away from Europe is a very dangerous thing right now, because you break away from all forms of human rights if you do this right now. We head into a situation where we really are on our own, and we know that it's to do this because we are in fear of refugees coming into our country, when we know that these refugees are in many cases fleeing the very bombs that we've actually supplied, and a lot of conflict that we've exacerbated. We know the best solution to this is not to close our borders, but to keep our borders open, but to stop supplying weapons and stop creating wars. You know, we can look and say, did Europe do this? Did Europe do all the crimes that Tony Blair did? Did Europe do all the crimes that David Cameron did? What I consider crimes, you know, invading Libya. I think that was wrong. Just like I thought Tony Blair invading Iraq was wrong. Did Europe do those things? Was that Europe to blame? You know, you've got to ask yourself: did Europe do it? Are you being fooled here? Because guys, I'm not going to be at Glastonbury this year. You know, number one, I've been invited to go along and what have you, and get involved in the Gorilla Bar and what have you, which is a big part of what I've done for many years. But I'm not going to be doing the House of Commons because I'm not really welcome to do that. You know, I'm pretty mad at the moment, probably going and soon to be the maddest man in this country. But I cannot contribute to a massive show that's going to be a massive distraction to this EU vote, because I see what they're doing. They're trying to distract you away from it, repulse you away from Europe, and Europe is what you won after the Second World War, after all the lobbying. That's what you finally got, a proportionally run electoral system. And all I can ask you is, if you believe in your heart it is an undemocratic process, can I ask you, hand on your heart, did you vote in that what you call a non-democratic process? Because if you didn't vote, then I can only tell you that what you call was a non-democratic process was simply a non-democratic process for you. Europe didn't do this, guys. Tony Blair, our horrible government, David Cameron, you know, these are all, you know, you can't blame Europe for this. You're being fooled. You're being fooled. Don't do it, guys, because you don't want to break from Europe when this thing is coming in. You just don't want to do that. It's called karma displacement, where you blame something else. It's a scapegoat. You don't want to make this mistake. Guys, I'm not going to go to Glastonbury. I'm going to vote. And then I'm gonna get out of the country, because I've got a funny feeling you're all going to do what you normally do. You're not going to vote, and then you're going to blame your apathy, or you're going to blame the whole system that is really your apathy. You know, 66% of the population didn't vote in the last European election, and it was taken over by the very people that are telling you it's such a terrible thing. Took over the European Commission, tried to drive us into TTIP, and then you blame Europe, but it's actually the non-voters that had complete power. It's a proportionally run system. Guys, you're being duped. You know, don't let your apathy take over here. Don't let this big show, Glastonbury, be a massive distraction. Make sure you vote. Make sure you do what you've got to do. You know, because if you lose Europe, you lose. You truly lose all power of choice, which means you lose your sovereignty. And that's what this is all about. Because if you're not sovereign when this thing comes in, you are in a very vulnerable place. We are in a very vulnerable place. So I'm going to vote by post myself, and I'm not going to. I don't even want to be in this country at the point of that election, in case you decide to vote out, or just do the worst thing possible and sit on the fence and don't vote at all. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry for a bit of a rant, but loving you and leaving you.